The stars looked cold through the small window of the cell. Nari pressed her hand against the metal wall and felt nothing but emptiness. Her body hurt everywhere. Her throat felt tight, like someone had wrapped chains around it. She wanted to scream, to cry out, to beg for help, but no sound came, not even a whisper. It had been one day since the pirates attacked her ship. One day since everything went wrong. Nari was a translator. She traveled between worlds, helping different species talk to each other. Her people, the Kalathi, were good at understanding others. They could feel emotions like waves in water. It made them perfect for peaceful work, but it also made them weak. The diplomatic vessel she worked on was moving through neutral space when the attack happened. Red lights flashed, alarms screamed. The captain shouted orders, but it was too late. The pirates cut through the hull like it was paper. They wore dark armor and carried weapons that hummed with power. Nari remembered running. She remembered the other crew members falling. She remembered strong hands grabbing her arms and pulling her away. Someone laughed. Someone said she would bring good money. Then everything became a blur of pain and fear. When she woke up, she was here, in this cell, on this station. The cell was small, barely big enough for her to lie down. The walls were gray metal, stained with things she did not want to think about. There was no bed, no blanket, just cold floor. A bucket in the corner served as a bathroom. The smell made her sick. But the worst part was the silence. Not the silence around her, but the silence inside her. Kalathi people had a strange feature in their bodies. When they felt too much fear, too much pain, their throats closed. Their voices disappeared. It was supposed to protect them, to keep them quiet when predators were near. But here, in this place, it only made things worse. Nari tried to speak. She tried so hard. She opened her mouth and pushed air from her lungs, but nothing happened. Her vocal cords felt frozen, dead. She could not even make a small sound. The pirates who took her were called Vrexians. They were tall and covered in thick gray skin that looked like stone. Their eyes were small and black, showing no feeling at all. They spoke in rough voices and moved with heavy steps. To them, Nari was not a person. She was just merchandise, something to sell. On her first day in the cell, a Vrexian guard came to check on her. He looked through the bars with those dead eyes. Nari tried to reach out to him. She lifted her hands and made signs with her fingers, pointing to her throat, to her mouth, trying to show that she could not speak. The guard just laughed. It was a cold, harsh sound. "Silent type, are you?" he said in Galactic Common, the language most species use to talk to each other. "Maybe you think you are too good to speak to us. Maybe you think staying quiet will make us let you go." Nari shook her head hard. She pointed again to her throat, moving her hands in desperation. The guard's face changed. His eyes became mean. "You want to play games?" he said. "Fine. No water for you today. Maybe tomorrow you will remember how to talk." He walked away. His heavy boots made loud sounds on the metal floor. Nari collapsed against the wall and felt tears running down her face, but even crying, she made no sound. Silent tears for a silent prisoner. The station was called Orbital Reach 7. Nari learned this from the words painted on the walls outside her cell. It was a mining station, supposedly neutral territory, but everyone knew that neutral just meant criminals could work here without questions. The station pulled valuable minerals from asteroids and sold them across the galaxy. It also served as a meeting place for traders of all kinds, including slave traders. Through the small window in her cell door, Nari could see parts of the corridor outside. Guards walked past every few hours. Sometimes she saw other prisoners being moved from place to place. Most looked broken and tired. None looked at her. None tried to help. The station felt wrong to Nari. As a Kalathi, she could sense emotions from other beings. It was not exactly reading minds, but more like feeling the mood in a room. Here, the mood was darkness, cruelty, greed, pain. It pressed against her mind like heavy weight. Every moment she felt the suffering of everyone around her. The guards enjoyed hurting others. The prisoners had given up hope. The whole place was soaked in misery, and Nari absorbed it all. She could not turn it off. The empathic sense was part of who she was. In her normal life on her homeworld, this ability brought joy. She felt love from her family, friendship from her colleagues, peace from her surroundings. But here, it was torture. Here, it was slowly killing her. By the end of the first day, Nari's body was already showing signs of trouble. Kalathi's skin had markings that glowed softly with bioluminescence. The markings showed health and emotion. When a Kalathi was happy, the markings glowed bright. When scared, they flickered. When sick, they faded. Nari's markings were starting to fade. She needed water. Not just any water, but water with certain minerals that her body required. On her ship, she always had access to the right supplies. Here, she had nothing. The small cup of water the guards gave her once a day was not enough. It did not have what she needed. She could feel her organs struggling, her strength draining away. Late on the first night, someone new came to the cell block. Nari heard different footsteps, lighter than the guards. She lifted her head and looked through the window. A human male walked past, carrying tools. He wore a worker's uniform, stained with grease and dirt. He was young, maybe in his 20s by human standards, with dark hair and tired eyes. The human glanced at her cell as he passed. Their eyes met for just a second. Nari saw something in his face that she had not seen since the attack. Concern, maybe even kindness. But then a guard shouted at him, telling him to hurry up and finish his work. The human looked away and kept walking. Nari watched him disappear down the corridor. For a moment, just a brief moment, she felt something other than despair. She felt a tiny spark of hope. But hope was dangerous here. Hope could hurt worse than fear. She curled up on the cold floor and closed her eyes. Day 1 was over. She wondered how many more days she could survive. She wondered if anyone would ever hear her silent screams. She wondered if she would die in this cell, forgotten and alone, without ever speaking again. The stars outside the window did not answer. They just kept shining their cold, distant light into the darkness. The second day was worse than the first. Nari woke to find her body trembling. The cold had settled deep into her bones during the night. She tried to stand, but her legs felt weak. Her head spun when she moved. The fading light from her bioluminescent markings cast dim shadows on the wall. She crawled to the corner where a small cup of water sat. The guards must have brought it while she slept. Her hands shook as she lifted it to her lips. The water tasted metallic and wrong. It did nothing to ease the burning thirst in her throat. Her body was crying out for the minerals it needed, but this water had none of them. Around midday, 2 Vrexian guards stopped outside her cell. They were talking about her like she was not even there. "How much do you think Throck will get for this one?" the first guard asked. He was the same one who had refused her water yesterday. The second guard shrugged his massive shoulders. "Kalathi are rare in this sector. The research facilities pay well for exotic species. I heard 50,000 credits, maybe more." "Research." The first guard laughed. "That is a nice word for torture." They both laughed and walked away. Nari felt their amusement like knives in her mind. Her empathic senses picked up every cruel thought, every dark emotion. She wanted to close her mind, to block them out, but she could not. The feelings kept coming, wave after wave of darkness. She spent the rest of day 2 trying to write messages on the walls. She used her fingernail to scratch marks into the metal, but her hands were too weak and the metal was too hard. After an hour of trying, she had only managed a few meaningless lines. She gave up and slumped against the wall, breathing hard from the effort. Day 3 brought new pain. Nari's organs were starting to fail. She could feel it happening inside her body. Kalathi biology was delicate, designed for their gentle home world. Without proper care, they died quickly. Her heart beat strangely in her chest. Her vision blurred at the edges. The markings on her skin had faded to almost nothing. In the dim light of the cell, she looked like a ghost. Other prisoners in nearby cells ignored her. There was a reptilian creature 2 cells down who sometimes hissed at the guards. There was something that looked like a blob of jelly in the cell across the corridor. None of them tried to communicate with Nari. In this place, everyone was focused on their own survival. There was no room for helping others. That afternoon, the human came back. Nari heard his footsteps before she saw him. They were different from the heavy thuds of the Vrexian guards. Lighter, faster, almost nervous. She forced herself to look through the window. The human was working on something in the corridor, kneeling down with tools spread around him. He was fixing a vent in the wall. His hands moved quickly and with skill. Every few seconds, he glanced toward her cell. Nari wanted to call out to him. She wanted to bang on the door, to wave her arms, to do anything to get his attention, but her body would not cooperate. She could barely lift her hand, and even if she could move, even if she could get to the door, what would be the point? She could not speak. She could not explain what was wrong. She would just be another silent prisoner. The human finished his work and stood up. He looked directly at her cell. Their eyes met again. Nari saw concern in his face. She tried to show him with her eyes how much she was suffering. She tried to make him understand without words. But after a moment, he looked away and gathered his tools. A guard appeared and told him to move along. The human obeyed and disappeared down the corridor. Nari felt the tiny spark of hope from day 1 die. Nobody would help her. Nobody could help her. She was going to die here. Day 4 was a blur of pain. Nari stopped trying to move. She lay on the floor in the corner, curled into a ball. Her breathing became shallow and difficult. Her body was shutting down, one system at a time. The empathic assault from the station continued without mercy. She felt anger, hatred, fear, cruelty, all mixing together in her mind until she could not tell where other people's emotions ended and her own began. At some point during the day, she heard voices outside her cell. The trader called Throck was there with the guards. Throck was the one who had bought her from the pirates. He was the one who owned her now. "The buyer will be here in 5 days," Throck said. His voice was deep and rough. "Make sure the merchandise stays alive until then. They do not pay full price for corpses." "She has not eaten anything," one guard said, "and she never speaks. Just lies there like she is already dead." "Kalathi are weak," Throck replied. "Give her the minimum water, nothing more. The buyer wants to run their own tests, so no need to waste resources on comfort." They laughed and walked away. Nari understood every word. They were going to let her barely survive until someone came to buy her. Then she would be sold to a research facility where they would cut her open and study her while she was still alive. And through it all, she would not be able to scream. She would suffer in silence until the very end. Day 5 arrived and Nari could no longer open her eyes fully. The world was just shapes and shadows. She felt cold despite the fact that part of her mind knew the cell was not actually that cold. It was her body failing. Her temperature was dropping. Her heart was beating too slow. She thought about her home world. She thought about the blue skies and the singing trees that grew near her family home. She thought about her mother's face and her father's laugh. She thought about her younger brother who loved to explore and always got into trouble. Would they ever know what happened to her? Would they spend years wondering if she was still alive somewhere? A tear rolled down her cheek. It was warm against her cold skin. She did not have the energy to cry properly anymore. Just one tear. One last sign that she was still alive, still feeling, still hoping against hope that something would change. Then she heard the footsteps again. The human footsteps. They stopped outside her cell. Nari tried to look up but could not move her head. She heard a voice, soft and uncertain. "Hey, can you hear me?" It was the human. He was talking to her. Nari wanted to respond so badly. She wanted to nod, to move, to show that yes, she could hear him. But her body was finished. She had nothing left. "I have been watching you," the human continued. His voice sounded young and worried. "You have not moved in days. Something is really wrong, is it not?" Silence. Nari's silence answered him. "I looked up your species," the human said. "You are Kalathi, right? I read about your people, about how you cannot speak when you are scared or hurt, about how you need special minerals to survive. They are not giving you what you need, are they?" Nari felt a shock run through her body. He understood. This human understood what was happening to her. He had taken the time to research her species. He knew why she could not speak. He knew what she needed. "I will be back," the human whispered. "I promise, I will be back." His footsteps faded away. Nari lay on the cold floor and felt something she had not felt since day one. She felt hope, real hope. Not the foolish hope of a desperate prisoner, but actual hope based on the actions of a kind stranger. A human stranger who had seen her suffering and decided to do something about it. For the first time in 5 days, Nari's heart beat a little stronger. Her bioluminescent markings flickered, just for a second, with the faintest glow. She was still dying. She was still trapped. She was still silent. But now she was not alone. Someone knew. Someone cared. Someone was coming back. She held on to that thought as darkness pulled at the edges of her mind. She held on to it like a drowning person holds onto a rope. The human would come back. He promised. And somehow, in her fading consciousness, Nari believed him. Jiho could not sleep that night. He lay in his small bunk in the workers' quarters and stared at the ceiling. His mind kept returning to the Kalathi prisoner in that cell. Her eyes haunted him. They were the eyes of someone who had given up, someone who was waiting to die. He had come to Orbital Reach 7 3 months ago to work off a labor contract. His family needed money, and this job paid well, even if it meant working in a place where he had to ignore terrible things. Jiho was good at fixing machines, good at staying quiet, good at not asking questions. That was how you survived in a place like this. But this was different. This was not about survival anymore. This was about being able to look at himself in the mirror. When morning came, Jiho went to the station's database during his break. He searched for everything he could find about Kalathi biology. What he learned made his stomach turn. Kalathi needed water with specific minerals, especially something called calcium titanate. Without it, their organs failed within 10 days. They also had an empathic sense that made them feel the emotions of everyone around them. In a place like this station, full of cruelty and violence, that sense would be pure torture. And the vocal paralysis. That was the worst part. When Kalathi experienced trauma, their throat muscles locked up completely. They could not speak, could not make any sound at all. It was a defense mechanism that evolved to keep them silent when predators were near. But here, it meant the prisoner could not even ask for help. She was suffering in complete silence. Jiho checked the time. It was day 6. If she had been captured during the pirate attack a few days before he first saw her, she was running out of time. He had to act now. He spent his lunch break gathering supplies. The station had a small medical bay for workers. Jiho told the medical droid he had a headache and needed something for pain. While the droid was preparing medicine, Jiho scanned the shelves. He found a water purification tablet and a mineral supplement. The supplement was meant for a different species, but it contained calcium titanate. It would have to work. That afternoon, Jiho made sure he was assigned to work near the prison cells. He told his supervisor there was a problem with the ventilation system. The supervisor did not care as long as the work got done. Jiho grabbed his tools and headed to the cell block. His heart pounded as he approached. 2 guards were on duty, but they were distracted, watching something on a screen. Jiho knelt down and pretended to work on a vent. He waited until the guards turned away, then quickly moved to the Kalathi's cell. She was lying in the corner, barely breathing. Her skin looked gray and lifeless. The glowing markings he had read about were almost completely dark. Jiho felt panic rising in his chest. Was he too late? He pulled out the water bottle he had prepared. He had mixed in the purification tablet and some of the mineral supplement. It was not perfect, but it was better than nothing. He reached through the bars and slid the bottle toward her. "Hey," he whispered in Galactic Common. "I do not know if you can understand me, but drink this. Please. It has minerals. It will help." The Kalathi did not move at first. Then slowly, her hand reached out. It shook badly as she grabbed the bottle. She brought it to her lips and drank in small sips. Jiho watched, holding his breath. After a minute, something amazing happened. The markings on her skin flickered. Just for a second, they glowed with a faint blue light. She was responding. The minerals were working. "I will come back," Jiho whispered. "I promise. Just hold on." He hurried away before the guards noticed. His hands were shaking. He had just committed a serious crime. If the guards found out he was helping a prisoner, he would be thrown in a cell himself, or worse. But seeing that flicker of light in her markings made it worth the risk. That night, Jiho talked to his friend Hana. She worked in the cargo bay and knew the station better than anyone. They met in a quiet corner of the workers' cafeteria. "You are crazy," Hana said after he explained what he had done. She was a few years older than Jiho, with sharp eyes and a careful way of speaking. "Do you know what they do to workers who interfere with merchandise?" "I know," Jiho said. "But I cannot just watch her die. I read about her species. She cannot even speak to ask for help. She has been suffering in silence for 6 days. Hana was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed. "What do you need from me?" Jiho felt relief wash over him. "Information. The prisoner is going to be sold in a few days. We need to get her out before that happens." "We?" Hana raised an eyebrow. "Jiho, this is not fixing a broken machine. This is serious. This is dangerous." "I know," Jiho said again, "but I cannot do it alone. Please, Hana. I have never asked you for anything like this before." Hana looked at him for a long time. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, but we need a real plan. We only get one chance at this." Day 7 began with Jiho returning to the cell during the early morning shift. He brought more water with minerals and a small piece of protein bar. The guards were changing shifts, so he had a few minutes. He slid the items through the bars. The Kalathi was sitting up this time. That was a good sign. She grabbed the water and drank eagerly. Then she looked at Jiho. Really looked at him. Her eyes were strange, a purple color that seemed to shift in the light. They were filled with tears, but also with something else. Gratitude. Hope. Jiho sat down outside the cell. He knew he should leave, but something made him stay. He started talking, keeping his voice low so the guards would not hear. "My name is Jiho," he said. "I work here as a maintenance tech. I know you cannot talk back, but I thought maybe you would want to hear a voice that is not yelling at you." The Kalathi watched him carefully. Her hands were wrapped around the water bottle like it was the most precious thing in the world. "I come from a planet called Earth," Jiho continued. "It is pretty far from here. I came to this station because my family needed money. My little sister is sick and the medicine is expensive. I thought if I worked here for a year, I could send enough money home to help her." He paused, then laughed softly. "I guess we both ended up in bad situations, huh? But do not worry. My friend Hannah and I are working on a plan. We are going to get you out of here." The Kalathi's eyes widened. She reached toward him through the bars. Her hand was shaking, but there was urgency in the movement. She touched his hand gently, just for a second. Jiho felt a strange sensation, like a warm wave passing through him. It was not unpleasant. It felt like understanding, like a thank you without words. "You are welcome," Jiho said softly. A guard shouted from down the corridor. Jiho jumped up and pretended to be working on the vent again. The guard walked past without looking at him. When it was safe, Jiho glanced back at the cell. The Kalathi was still watching him. A tear ran down her face, but her markings were glowing a little brighter than before. That evening, Jiho and Hana met again. This time, they had a plan. Hana had learned that a cargo transfer was scheduled for day 10. A large shipment was leaving the station and heading to human-controlled space. If they could hide the Kalathi in one of the cargo containers, they might be able to smuggle her out. "The timing is tight," Hana said. "The buyer is supposed to arrive on day 10 in the afternoon. The cargo transfer happens in the morning. We would have maybe a 4-hour window." "How do we get her from the cell to the cargo bay?" Jiho asked. "There is a maintenance passage that runs behind the prison block," Hana explained. "If we can get her into that passage, we can move her to the cargo bay without being seen. But we need someone to create a distraction." "I can do that," Jiho said. "I can trigger a false alarm in another part of the station. That will pull the guards away from the cell block." "And I can forge the transfer documents," Hana added. "I have access to the cargo system. I can make it look like the container is registered properly." They looked at each other. The plan was risky and full of holes. 100 things could go wrong, but it was the only chance they had. "Day 9, Jiho said. "We move on day 9, late shift. That gives us time to prepare and gets her out before the buyer arrives." Hana nodded. "Day 9. I hope you know what you are doing, Jiho." "I do not," Jiho admitted. "But I have to try." On day 8, Jiho visited the cell one more time. He brought more water and some medical supplies he had stolen from the workers' medical bay. The Kalathi was definitely improving. She could sit up without trembling now. Her markings glowed with a steady, soft light. She was still weak, still silent, but she was alive. "Tomorrow night," Jiho whispered to her. "We are getting you out tomorrow night. I need you to be ready. I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" The Kalathi looked at him with those strange purple eyes. Then, slowly, she nodded. She understood, and she trusted him. Jiho smiled despite his fear. "Good. Just one more day. Just hold on for one more day." As he left the cell block, Jiho's heart was racing. Tomorrow everything would change. Tomorrow he would either save a life or lose his own. But he had made his choice. He was done being the person who looked away. He was done ignoring suffering because it was easier. Tomorrow he would be the person who acted. Tomorrow he would be a hero, or he would die trying. Day 9 arrived with agonizing slowness. Jiho worked through his normal shift, trying to act like everything was normal. His hands shook every time he picked up a tool. His supervisor noticed and asked if he was feeling sick. Jiho said he was fine, just tired. The supervisor grunted and walked away. Hana spent the day preparing the cargo container. She chose one that was marked for medical supplies heading to a human colony. It was large enough for a person to hide inside, with enough air holes to breathe. She added some blankets and more water bottles with mineral supplements. Everything had to be perfect. The plan was simple, but that did not make it easy. At 2200 hours, during the night shift when the station was running on minimal crew, Jiho would trigger a false alarm in the eastern sector. This would pull most of the guards away from the prison block. Hana would use her access codes to open the cell and guide the Kalathi through the maintenance passage to the cargo bay. Jiho would meet them there with a transport pod. They would load the container onto the pod and launch before anyone realized what was happening. Simple. Except for the 1,000 ways it could go wrong. At 2100 hours, Jiho positioned himself near the eastern sector's environmental controls. He had spent the afternoon studying the system. A small overload in the oxygen recycling unit would trigger automatic alarms and safety protocols. It would not cause real damage, but it would look serious enough to demand immediate attention. At 21:45 hours, Hana made her way to the prison block. She carried a medical kit and wore a stolen supervisor's badge. If anyone stopped her, she would say she was checking on prisoners before the upcoming transfer. Her heart pounded so hard she thought everyone could hear it. At 2200 hours, Jiho activated the overload. Alarms blared through the eastern sector. Red lights flashed. The automated voice of the station computer announced an environmental emergency. Within seconds, guards were running toward the problem. The prison block was left with only one guard on duty. Hana approached the single remaining guard. He was young and looked bored. She held up her fake badge and said in her most official voice, "Medical inspection. Orders from Throck. The buyer wants the Kalathi examined before purchase." The guard shrugged. He did not care enough to argue. He unlocked the cell block door and waved her through. "Make it quick. I am not supposed to leave this area unmanned." 5 minutes, Hana promised. She walked down the corridor, forcing herself to move calmly. When she reached Nari's cell, she saw the Kalathi pressed against the bars, watching with wide eyes. Hana pulled out the electronic key Jiho had stolen from the maintenance office. Her hands trembled as she inserted it into the lock. The lock beeped. The door opened. Nari stumbled forward and Hana caught her. The Kalathi was lighter than Hana expected, her body frail from days of malnutrition. Hana wrapped Nari's arm around her shoulders and whispered, "We are getting you out. Stay quiet and trust me." Nari nodded. Her throat was still locked, still silent, but her eyes showed everything: fear, hope, desperate gratitude. They moved quickly to the maintenance passage entrance. Hana opened the hidden panel in the wall and helped Nari inside. The passage was dark and narrow, barely wide enough for 2 people. They had to move in a half-crouch, following the dim emergency lights along the floor. Behind them, an alarm started blaring. But this was a different alarm. This was the prison alarm. Someone had discovered the empty cell. "Go, go, go!" Hana urged, pulling Nari forward. They stumbled through the passage, Nari's weak legs barely able to keep pace. Hana could hear shouting in the distance. The guards were searching. They did not have much time. Meanwhile, Jiho had reached the cargo bay. He powered up a small transport pod and opened its cargo door. His hands flew over the controls, programming an emergency launch sequence. His supervisor certification gave him access to the pod. But someone would definitely notice when he left the station without proper clearance. Hana and Nari emerged from the maintenance passage into the cargo bay. Jiho saw them and felt relief flood through him. They had made it this far. He ran to help, taking Nari's other arm. Together they moved her toward the pod. That was when everything went wrong. "Hey, what are you doing?" A Vrexian guard had entered the cargo bay. He was one of the prison guards, probably following their trail from the maintenance passage. His hand went to the weapon on his belt. Jiho did not think. He just acted. He grabbed a cargo hook from the nearby wall and threw it at the guard. The heavy metal tool hit the Vrexian in the chest. It did not hurt him much, but it surprised him. Jiho used that second of confusion to shove Nari into the cargo container. "Hana!" "Seal it!" he shouted. Hana slammed the container door shut and locked it. The guard was running toward them now, his weapon drawn. Energy bolts sizzled through the air. One hit the wall near Jiho's head, leaving a smoking hole. Another hit the cargo lifter, making it spark and short out. Jiho and Hana grabbed the container and shoved it into the pod. It was heavy and awkward, but adrenaline gave them strength. More guards were entering the cargo bay now. Alarms were screaming. The station computer was announcing a security breach. "Get in!" Jiho yelled at Hana. She jumped into the pod. Jiho followed, slamming his hand on the door control. The pod door started to close just as an energy bolt hit Jiho's shoulder. Pain exploded through his body. He screamed and fell against the control panel. Jiho! Hana caught him before he collapsed completely. Blood was soaking through his work uniform. The energy bolt had burned through his shoulder, leaving a terrible wound. Launch! Jiho gasped. Just launch! Hana pushed him into the co-pilot seat and threw herself into the pilot chair. She had never actually flown a transport pod before, but she had watched others do it enough times. Her hands found the controls. She pulled back on the throttle. The pod's engines roared to life. The cargo bay doors were still closed. Hana activated the emergency override. Red lights flashed as the massive doors began to open. It was not fast enough. The guards were shooting at the pod now. Energy bolts hit the hull, making horrible clanging sounds. Come on! Come on! Hana muttered. The doors were halfway open. She could see space beyond. Stars. Freedom. The moment the gap was wide enough, Hana punched the engines to full power. The pod shot forward, scraping against the partly open doors with a terrible screech of metal on metal. Then they were through. They were out of the station. They were in open space. But they were not safe yet. 2 Vrexian patrol craft launched from the station behind them. They were faster and better armed than the transport pod. Warning lights lit up all over Hana's control panel. The patrol craft were locking weapons on them. They are going to shoot us down, Hana said. Fear made her voice shake. Jiho looked at the navigation display through the haze of pain. There was an asteroid field ahead, maybe 5 minutes away at full speed. If they could reach it, they might be able to lose their pursuers in the rocks. But 5 minutes was a long time when someone was shooting at you. Energy bolts streaked past the pod. One hit their rear shield, making the whole craft shudder. Warning alarms added to the chaos. Hana pushed the engines harder, coaxing every bit of speed from the old transport pod. Almost there, Jiho said through gritted teeth. The asteroid field was getting closer. He could see the tumbling rocks, some as small as his fist, others as large as buildings. When we enter the field, cut the engines for 3 seconds, then restart at 45 degrees down. It will make them think we crashed. Are you insane? Hana looked at him like he had lost his mind. Trust me, Jiho's voice was strong despite his wound. I used to race pods back home. I know what I am doing. Another energy bolt hit them. This one taking out their rear shield completely. The next hit would damage the engines. They were out of time. They entered the asteroid field. Hana did exactly what Jiho said. She cut the engines completely. For 3 terrifying seconds, they drifted in silence through the tumbling rocks. Behind them, the Vrexian patrol craft adjusted their aim, tracking where they thought the pod would go. Then Hana restarted the engines and dove down at a sharp angle. The pod dropped like a stone, passing between 2 large asteroids. The patrol craft, expecting them to continue straight, overshot their position. One of them clipped an asteroid and exploded in a ball of fire. The second patrol craft tried to follow, but Hana was already weaving through the asteroids, using the rocks as cover. Jiho guided her, his voice calm despite the pain in his shoulder. Left, right, up, down. They moved through the field like a fish through water. The patrol craft was not as lucky. It was built for speed, not maneuverability. It tried to keep up, but the rocks were too dense, too unpredictable. It finally gave up and turned back toward the station. The Vrexians were not willing to risk their ship in the asteroid field for one escaped prisoner. Hana let out a breath she did not know she was holding. They had done it. They had actually done it. But where could they go now? They were fugitives. The station would send out alerts. Every Vrexian ship in the sector would be looking for them. There, Jiho said weakly, pointing at the navigation display. His face was pale from blood loss. Human freight convoy. Scheduled to pass through this area in 20 minutes. If we can reach them, the Vrexians will not dare attack. Humans do not tolerate attacks on their ships. Hana set course for the convoy's projected location. Behind them, the Vrexian patrol craft had given up the chase. Ahead of them, hope waited in the form of human ships. And in the cargo container behind them, Nari was alive. Silent, traumatized, but alive. They had won. Against all odds, against all logic, they had won. Jiho closed his eyes and let himself believe, just for a moment, that everything would be okay. The human freight convoy appeared on their scanners exactly when Jiho said it would. 3 massive cargo ships moving in formation, their hulls marked with the symbols of Earth-based companies. Hana sent out a distress signal using the emergency frequency. For a long, terrible minute, there was no response. Then a voice crackled through the communication system. "This is Captain Sangyuk of the cargo vessel Rising Phoenix. We have received your distress call. What is your situation?" Hana nearly cried with relief. "This is Transport Pod Delta 7. We have an injured person and a rescued prisoner. We are being pursued by Vrexian forces. Please, we need help." There was a pause. Then the captain's voice came back, harder this time. "Vrexians, you said? Hold your position. We are coming to you." The convoy changed course. Within minutes, the massive cargo ships surrounded the small transport pod. Hana had never been so happy to see human vessels in her life. A medical shuttle launched from the Rising Phoenix and docked with their pod. The door opened, and medical personnel rushed in. A female doctor with quick hands and a kind face took one look at Jiho's shoulder and immediately started treating him. "This is a bad burn," she said, "but you will live. You are very brave, young man." "Not me," Jiho said weakly. "The one in the cargo container. Help her first." The medical team opened the container carefully. Nari was curled inside, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. She did not understand what was happening. Everything had been chaos and noise and terror. But then the doctor knelt down beside her and spoke in a soft voice. "Hello, little one. My name is Minji. I am a doctor. You are safe now. Do you understand? You are safe." Nari looked at the doctor's face. She felt the emotions radiating from her. Kindness, concern, genuine care. After 10 days of cruelty and darkness, feeling these gentle emotions was like stepping into warm sunlight. Nari's eyes filled with tears. She nodded slowly. They moved Nari to the medical bay on the Rising Phoenix. Captain Sangyuk personally made sure the Vrexian patrol craft stayed away. When one patrol craft tried to demand they return the stolen property, the captain's response was broadcast across all channels. "There is no stolen property here. There is a person who was being held illegally. The Galactic Council outlawed slavery 200 years ago. If you try to take her, you will be declaring war on humanity. Do you really want to do that?" The Vrexian patrol craft turned back. They were bullies, not warriors. They would not fight a human convoy over one prisoner. In the medical bay, Dr. Minji worked carefully on Nari. She had studied Kalathi biology quickly using the ship's database. She prepared the correct mineral solutions and administered them intravenously. Nari's body responded immediately. Her bioluminescent markings began to glow brighter. Her breathing became easier. The gray color faded from her skin. Jiho sat in the next bed, his shoulder bandaged, watching over Nari. Hana stood nearby, still shaking from the adrenaline of their escape. They had done it. Against all odds, they had actually saved her. For the first few hours, Nari drifted in and out of consciousness. Her body was healing, but healing took time. The medical staff kept careful watch over her vital signs. Everything slowly improved, heart rate stabilizing, temperature rising to normal levels, organ function recovering. It was late in the ship's night cycle when Nari finally woke fully. She opened her eyes and looked around the medical bay. Everything was clean and bright, so different from the dark cell. A monitor beeped softly beside her bed. An IV drip fed minerals into her arm, and sitting in the chair next to her bed, despite his own injury, was the human, Jiho, the one who had saved her. Nari tried to sit up. Jiho immediately stood and gently helped her. "Easy," he said. "You are still weak. You have been through a lot." Nari looked at him, really looked at him. She saw the bandage on his shoulder. She saw the exhaustion in his face. This human had been shot, had risked his life, had given up his job and safety, all to save her. A stranger, an alien he did not even know. She opened her mouth. She tried to speak. The words would not come. Her throat was still locked, still holding on to the trauma of the past 10 days. Frustration filled her. She wanted to thank him. She needed to thank him. But the words would not form. Jiho seemed to understand. "It is okay," he said gently. "You do not have to speak. I know what you have been through. I know about your people's vocal paralysis. Just rest. You are safe now." But Nari did not want to just rest. She had spent 10 days in silence, unable to express her suffering, unable to ask for help. Now she was safe, but the silence still trapped her. She felt tears running down her face. Not tears of pain this time, but tears of frustration and overwhelming emotion. Dr. Minji came to check on her. "Her throat muscles are still in a state of protective lockdown," the doctor explained to Jiho. "It is a trauma response. It might take days or even weeks for her to be able to speak again. We just have to be patient." Nari spent the rest of that day and the next slowly recovering. The medical team took excellent care of her. Captain Sang-yuk visited and told her that he had contacted the Galactic Council. They were very interested in her case. The station where she had been held would be investigated. The traitors would face justice. Jiho visited her often, sometimes just sitting quietly in her room. He told her stories about Earth, about his home, about his little sister who loved to look at the stars. He did not expect her to respond. He just wanted her to know she was not alone. On the third day aboard the Rising Phoenix, something changed. Nari woke up feeling different. The constant pressure in her throat had eased slightly. She could breathe more deeply. She could swallow without pain. She sat up in bed and looked at herself in the mirror the nurse had provided. Her bioluminescent markings were bright blue, glowing with health. Her skin had returned to its normal color. She looked like herself again. More importantly, she felt like herself again. The empathic assault from the station had faded. Here, surrounded by kind humans, she felt only positive emotions: care, friendship, curiosity. It was healing in a way medicine could not match. Jiho came to visit in the afternoon. His shoulder was healing well. He could move his arm again, though Dr. Minji had told him to take it easy. He sat in his usual chair and smiled at Nari. "You look much better," he said. "Your markings are really bright today." Nari opened her mouth. She tried again to speak. This time something was different. She felt her throat muscles responding. They were stiff and weak, like muscles that had not been used in a long time, but they were working. She pushed air through her vocal cords and forced out a sound. It was barely a whisper, rough and scratchy, but it was a sound. Her first sound in 10 days. "Why?" The word came out broken and quiet. She tried again, putting all her effort into it. "Why? Help me?" Jiho's eyes widened. Then he smiled, and it was the most genuine smile Nari had ever seen. "You can speak," he said with wonder in his voice. Then he answered her question simply. "Because it was the right thing to do. No one deserves what you went through. No one should suffer alone like that." Nari felt something break inside her. All the fear, all the pain, all the trauma of the past 10 days came flooding out. She cried. She cried like she had not been able to cry in the cell, with sound and voice and all the emotion she had been forced to keep silent. Jiho did not try to stop her. He just moved his chair closer and held her hand while she cried. When the tears finally stopped, Nari felt lighter, emptier but in a good way, like she had poured out all the darkness, and now there was room for light again. She looked at Jiho with red eyes and spoke again, her voice getting a little stronger. "My name is Nari," she said. Each word was still difficult but possible. "Thank you, Jiho. Thank you for seeing me when everyone else looked away. Thank you for caring when no one else did." Over the next few days, Nari's voice grew stronger. She talked with Dr. Minji about Kalathi biology and culture. She told Captain Sangyuk everything that had happened to her, from the pirate attack to her rescue. The captain recorded everything for the Galactic Council investigation. News of the rescue spread quickly through the communication networks. A human maintenance worker and a cargo bay manager had risked their lives to save an alien prisoner from slavery. They had fought off guards, escaped through an asteroid field, and stood up to Vrexian threats. The story captured the imagination of people across many worlds. The Kalathi government sent a ship to meet the rising phoenix. When it arrived, there was a delegation of Kalathi officials aboard, including Nari's family. Her mother, her father, and her younger brother Taewon rushed into the medical bay and surrounded her with hugs and tears. They had thought she was dead. The pirates had destroyed her ship, and there had been no survivors reported. But now here she was, alive because of human kindness. Nari's father approached Jiho and Hana, who stood awkwardly near the door. The older Kalathi man bowed deeply, lower than tradition required. When he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. "You saved my daughter's life," he said. "You gave up your safety, your job, maybe your future to help a stranger. There are no words in any language to properly thank you for this." "We just did what was right," Jiho said, embarrassed by the attention. "No," Nari's mother said. She had the same purple eyes as her daughter. "Many people would have looked away. Many people did look away. But you acted. That is the difference between knowing what is right and being truly good." The Kalathi delegation invited Jiho and Hana to visit their homeworld. They offered them jobs, homes, anything they wanted. But Jiho just asked for one thing: that someone help his little sister get the medicine she needed. The Kalathi government immediately arranged for the best medical care, free of charge. It was the least they could do. The Galactic Council investigation moved quickly. With Nari's testimony and evidence from the Rising Phoenix's records, they shut down Orbital Reach 7. The traitors were arrested. The station's owner, Throck, tried to flee but was caught by a human patrol. The news made headlines across the galaxy. But more than the arrests, more than the justice served, something else changed. Other species began to talk about humans differently. They were not just the newcomers anymore. The young species still learning the ways of the galaxy. They were the ones who saw suffering and acted. They were the ones who valued individual life above their own safety. 3 months after the rescue, there was a ceremony on the Kalathi homeworld. Nari stood in front of a crowd of thousands. She had fully recovered. She worked as an ambassador now, building bridges between humans and Kalathi. Her markings glowed bright as she spoke into the microphone, her voice strong and clear. "I endured 10 days of silent suffering," she said. 10 days where I could not speak, could not ask for help, could not even scream. I was invisible to everyone who saw me, just merchandise to be sold. But then a human showed me kindness, just simple, pure kindness. He did not know me. He did not know if I could even understand him, but he helped anyway. He and his friend risked everything to save a stranger." She looked at Jiho and Hana, who sat in the front row looking uncomfortable with all the attention. "That is what humans do," Nari continued. "They see people where others see property. They hear cries for help, even when those cries are silent. In a galaxy that can be cold and cruel, humans bring warmth and compassion. They are heroes, not because they are strong or powerful, but because they choose to care. The crowd erupted in applause. It was not just Kalathi in the audience. Representatives from dozens of species had come to witness this ceremony. They had all heard the story. They had all been moved by it. That evening, Nari found Jiho standing alone on a balcony, looking up at the stars. She joined him, and for a moment they just stood in comfortable silence. "Do you ever regret it?" Nari asked finally. "You lost your job. You almost died. Your life completely changed because you decided to help me." Jiho thought about it. Then he smiled. "No," he said. "I do not regret it at all. My sister is healthy now. You are alive and safe. And I learned something important. I learned that I am the kind of person who will do the right thing even when it is hard. That is worth more than any job." Nari's markings pulsed with happiness. She reached out and took his hand. "In Kalathi culture," she said, "there is a concept called Heavenik. It means soul friend. Someone who saves your life becomes connected to you forever, not in a romantic way, but something deeper. You are my Heavenik, Jiho. You and Hana both. You will always have a home with my people. You will always have me as your friend." "Hevanik," Jiho repeated, testing the word. "I like that. Friends across the stars." They stood together watching the sunset on a world far from Earth. Behind them, through the open door, they could hear laughter and celebration. Humans and Kalathi mixing together, sharing food and stories, building friendships that would last generations. In a galaxy that had seen too much cruelty, too much indifference, two humans had proven that kindness still mattered. That one person could make a difference. That seeing suffering and choosing to act was not weakness, but the greatest strength of all. And for Nari, who had endured 10 days of silent suffering, who had lost her voice and nearly lost her life, there was now only joy. Joy in breathing freely, joy in speaking clearly, joy in being alive and surrounded by people who cared. The silence was broken. The suffering had ended. And in its place was hope, bright and burning, like the stars themselves.